The receipt for 2 platinum wedding bands, when we already had ours, was the first thread that pulled apart my husband's carefully constructed secret life. I never thought I'd be that person. The one who finds evidence of betrayal while doing something as mundane as organizing tax documents. Michael and I had been married for 12 years, college sweethearts turned power couple. His financial advisory practice was thriving, my marketing director position at a top agency was everything I'd worked for, and we had just put a down payment on a vacation property. Our Instagram feed was the envy of friends, exotic vacations, dinner parties in our renovated historic home, and plans to finally start trying for children next year. That's what makes the discovery so much more devastating. When everything seems perfect, you don't look for cracks in the foundation. I remember staring at that jewelry store receipt, dated 3 months prior, trying to make sense of it. 2 platinum bands, sized for a man and woman, costing more than our mortgage payment. When I asked Michael about it that evening, his response came too quickly, too smoothly. That was for a client who needed investment advice for his upcoming wedding. I helped him choose something special within his budget. His smile never reached his eyes, but I nodded and filed it away, both the receipt and the doubt. After all, financial advisors deal with personal milestones all the time. It made sense, until his phone buzzed at 3 a.m. a week later. I was awake, battling insomnia that had become my nighttime companion. Michael lunged for his phone in the darkness, his body tense beside me. "Just work," he mumbled, taking the phone to the bathroom. When he returned, I pretended to be asleep, but not before catching the unfamiliar scent of perfume on his collar. A perfume he hadn't brought home for me. The next morning, I noticed a credit card statement with charges from a gym across town, nowhere near his office or our home. When asked, he mentioned a new fitness regimen with a specialized trainer, explaining his recent weight loss and upgraded wardrobe. Each explanation made logical sense on its own. Each one is perfectly reasonable. Yet together, they formed a mosaic of inconsistencies I couldn't ignore. My marketing mind, trained to see patterns and connections, began cataloging these moments against my will. Late nights at the office became more frequent. Text messages at odd hours were dismissed as client emergencies. Weekend golf outings multiplied, along with his sudden interest in international travel and learning Portuguese, a language I'd never heard him express interest in before. I'd wake up at night to find his side of the bed empty, only to discover him in the home office, quickly closing laptop screens when I appeared. Each time, a reasonable explanation followed. For months, I fought the growing knot in my stomach. I was busy with my own career, presentations, client pitches, and team management. I told myself I was being paranoid, that 12 years of trust shouldn't be questioned because of a few odd coincidences. But when I found those gym receipts for a location across town, nowhere near his office, something inside me finally snapped. That night, as Michael slept soundly beside me, I made a decision that would change everything. I would either prove my suspicions wrong and save my marriage from my own paranoia, or I would discover the truth, no matter how painful. Either way, I needed to know. What I couldn't possibly prepare for was that the truth would be bigger, stronger, and beyond anything I could have imagined. The morning after my decision, I logged into our shared phone account. Michael had always handled our finances, but I'd set up the initial accounts and still had all the passwords. I told myself it was just to verify his late-night work calls. What I found instead froze the blood in my veins. Every weekend for the past 4 months, when Michael claimed to be golfing with clients, his location showed regular visits to the Westwood Heights, an upscale apartment complex downtown, nowhere near any golf course. The next day, I sat in my car across from the gleaming glass building, hands gripping the steering wheel until my knuckles turned white. What was I doing? Spying on my husband? Had I become that person? I nearly started the engine to leave when a familiar figure emerged from the front entrance. Michael, dressed in casual clothes I didn't recognize, looking happier and more relaxed than I'd seen him in months. Sleep abandoned me entirely after that. I'd lie awake until Michael's breathing deepened, then slip out of bed to continue my investigation. Dark circles formed beneath my eyes, concealed by layers of makeup before client meetings. Twice, I excused myself from presentations to have panic attacks in bathroom stalls, my chest tight with dread and uncertainty. My work suffered. The marketing campaign I'd spent months developing received lukewarm reviews. My assistant began handling calls I couldn't focus on. Each night, I added to my growing spreadsheet of unexplained absences, cross-referencing them with mysterious credit card charges, creating a timeline of deception. Just as my suspicion reached a breaking point, Michael surprised me with plans for a weekend getaway to celebrate our anniversary. "You've been working too hard," he said, kissing my forehead. "Let me take care of everything." For a blissful weekend at a coastal resort, I almost convinced myself I'd imagined everything. The way he held my hand during sunset walks, his attentiveness during meals, the passionate reconnection in our suite, it explained some of the mysterious charges on our credit card. He'd been planning this surprise. My relief lasted exactly 8 days. While reviewing our joint credit card statement, I discovered recurring charges at Castellanos, an exclusive restaurant downtown I'd never visited. Always for 2 people. Always on Tuesdays, when Michael claimed to have late client meetings. Then came the moment that confirmed I wasn't losing my mind. Jen from the marketing team mentioned seeing Michael at the airport with an attractive woman when she was returning from a conference. He introduced her as a client's daughter, Jen said casually. But they seemed awfully cozy for a professional relationship. My coffee cup nearly slipped from my grasp. When was this? Last month, the 15th. They were at the international terminal. The 15th, when Michael was supposedly at a financial planning conference in Chicago. That evening, Michael brought home flowers and suggested we start trying for a baby sooner than planned. "Life's too short," he said, pulling me close. "Why wait until next year?" His sudden urgency about children after years of careful planning felt calculated rather than romantic. Was he trying to bind me closer just as I was growing suspicious? I needed irrefutable proof, not just coincidences and contradictions. After researching online, I contacted a private investigator, using my personal savings to keep the transaction hidden from our joint accounts. 3 days later, the PI sent the first photos. Michael and a woman entering the Westwood Heights apartment building. She was tall, elegantly dressed with flowing dark hair. They carried overnight bags and used matching key fobs to access the building. "Her name is Vanessa Chen," the PI's message read, "financial analyst at Michael's firm." The next set of photos arrived while I was preparing dinner. Michael and Vanessa kissing in the elevator, his hand cradling her face with tenderness I recognized from our early years together. It wasn't just the physical betrayal that knocked the breath from my lungs, it was the expression in his eyes. That mixture of adoration and desire, once reserved only for me, now directed at another woman. I barely made it to the bathroom before vomiting. That night, reviewing our credit card statements again with new awareness, I discovered charges for a couple's cooking class during the exact week Michael claimed to be at a financial conference in Chicago. The same week Jen had spotted them at the international terminal. No more coincidences. No more benefit of the doubt. No more alternative explanations. The next morning I called in sick to work for the first time in 3 years. I waited until Michael left for the office, then sat down at his desk in our home study. His laptop password had been the same for years, my birthday followed by his mother's initials. He thought I didn't know it, but early in our marriage I'd watched him type it countless times. With trembling fingers, I typed the password, half hoping it would be wrong, that he'd changed it to lock me out. The screen unlocked immediately. His email opened automatically. At first I saw nothing unusual. Client communications, investment newsletters, golf tea time confirmations. But there, in a folder labeled Property Investments, I found what he thought was safely hidden. With shaking hands, I clicked on the folder, and what loaded on the screen was beyond anything I could have imagined. Not just an affair, but an entire parallel existence constructed alongside our marriage. The Property Investments folder contained hundreds of files. Photos, documents, emails, and financial statements. With each click, my reality crumbled further. Vacation photos filled the first subfolder. Michael and Vanessa on a beach in Bali during his supposed financial conference in San Diego. The two of them are hiking in Portugal, explaining his sudden interest in learning the language. Intimate dinners, helicopter tours, and cozy nights in luxury hotels, all during times he'd told me he was working or traveling for business. These weren't just hasty meetups or secret rendezvous. These were carefully planned experiences, documented and saved like cherished memories. The financial documents were even more devastating. A joint bank account statement showed regular deposits from both Michael and Vanessa. Property searches for homes in coastal Portugal. Investment portfolios they'd built together. A shared credit card with both their names. My husband hadn't just created an affair. He'd constructed an entire financial future with another woman. The bathroom door opened. Michael's shower had ended. I quickly closed the laptop but remained seated, unable to move, my body physically rejecting the reality before me. "You okay, babe?" Michael called from the hallway. "Thought you'd be at work by now." "Stomach bug," I managed to reply, my voice surprisingly steady. "Going to rest today." Once Michael left for work, I reopened the laptop and continued my excavation of his double life. Each new discovery felt like another blow to my chest. In a subfolder labeled Future Plans, I found emails between them discussing a move abroad. They'd already researched visa requirements, international job opportunities, and housing markets. "Once everything's finalized next year, we can finally stop living in the shadows," Michael had written 3 weeks ago. "Just a little longer until we're free." The timing aligned perfectly with our plans to start trying for children, a commitment he apparently had no intention of honoring. An email thread from last month made the room spin around me. "Appointment confirmed at Westside Fertility Clinic, Thursday at 3 p.m. So excited for this next step, my love." Vanessa's reply included a heart emoji. "Me too. Can't wait to build our family together." They weren't just planning a future. They were actively trying to create a child together while sleeping in our marital bed. The weight of this realization crushed the air from my lungs. I collapsed onto our kitchen floor, physically unable to stand as I processed the magnitude of Michael's betrayal. This wasn't just an affair. It was a fully formed life that made ours look like a cheap imitation. I don't remember how long I stayed on the kitchen floor. The granite tiles had warmed beneath my body by the time I managed to stand. Moving mechanically, I went to the bathroom and vomited until nothing remained. As I rinsed my mouth, my reflection stared back, pale, hollow-eyed, a stranger wearing my face. Who was this woman whose husband had built an entire second life? How had I missed so many signs? My marketing mind, trained to analyze data and recognize patterns, kicked into survival mode. I needed evidence. Permanent, undeniable evidence that couldn't be explained away. For the next 6 hours, I methodically documented everything I found. Screenshots of emails, bank statements, property searches. I transferred files to my personal drive and printed key documents. Each page felt like handling toxic material, contaminating my fingers with the residue of betrayal. When Michael texted that he'd be working late, I replied with normal domestic conversation. Asked what he wanted for dinner tomorrow. Mentioned a show we'd been watching. Ended with, "Love you." Each word typed was strategic. I needed time to process, to plan, to prepare for the confrontation that would end our marriage. That evening, when Michael kissed me goodbye before his late night at the office, I whispered that I loved him, knowing it would be the last time those words would ever leave my lips. The next day, I called in sick again. Michael left early for a client breakfast meeting. The moment the door closed, I began executing my plan. I withdrew half of our joint savings, my legal right as a spouse. I contacted our family attorney under the guise of updating our wills, instead quietly discussing divorce options and the infidelity clause in our prenuptial agreement. I called my brother Ryan, the only person I trusted completely after his own painful divorce 2 years ago. By afternoon, I had transformed our dining room into an evidence room. Every surface is covered with chronologically arranged proof of Michael's double life. Photographs, bank statements, email printouts, the fertility clinic appointment confirmation. A timeline of his deceptions spanning 3 years. At 7:30 p.m., I heard his key in the lock. I sat at the head of the table, hands folded, breathing deliberately slow. "Jamie, why are all the lights off except—" He stopped abruptly in the dining room doorway. His briefcase slipped from his fingers, hitting the hardwood with a hollow thud. I watched silently as color drained from his face, his eyes darting across the documented evidence of his betrayal. For 30 seconds, neither of us spoke. The grandfather clock in the hallway ticked loudly, marking the final moments of our marriage. "It's not what you think," he finally said, voice barely audible. "Interesting opening choice," I replied, my tone unnervingly calm. "What exactly do I think, Michael?" He stepped forward, hands extended pleadingly. She means nothing to me." I slid the fertility clinic appointment confirmation across the table. "Does she know that too?" His face crumpled as he realized the extent of what I'd discovered. Tears formed in his eyes, whether genuine or calculated. I couldn't tell anymore. "You don't understand," he said, voice breaking. "I've felt trapped, Jamie. You're always working, always focused on your next promotion. When did you last really see me? Vanessa appreciates me, makes me feel valued in ways you stopped years ago." The audacity of his blame shifting ignited something cold and sharp within me. I stood slowly. "I've already called your parents and mine. Everyone knows exactly who you are now." His phone buzzed in his pocket, once, twice, 3 times in rapid succession. When he didn't respond, a text notification lit up his screen. I glimpsed Vanessa's name and the words "pregnancy test." Michael saw me notice. "It's not. She's just worried about—" "Stop lying." I cut him off. "I know everything. The apartment at Westwood Heights, the joint bank accounts, the fertility clinic appointments, your plans to move to Portugal next year. I know your relationship began during my father's cancer treatment when I was driving to the hospital every night after work." His expression shifted from contrition to anger as he realized I'd accessed his private files. "You had no right to invade my privacy. Those emails were personal." "Personal?" I laughed, the sound harsh and unfamiliar. "Like our marriage vows? Like our joint finances you've been siphoning to fund your second life? Like the future we planned together that you never intended to honor?" His face hardened. "This wouldn't have happened if you'd been more present. Your career always came first. I need someone who puts me first. While you were building a life with her, I was building our retirement portfolio and paying extra on our mortgage. While you were planning vacations with her, I was declining promotions that would require more travel so we could start a family next year." The doorbell rang. Michael's head snapped toward the hallway. "That's Ryan," I said calmly. "With a locksmith. You can't kick me out of my own house." I slid a document across the table, the prenuptial agreement he'd insisted upon to protect his assets before his practice took off. Section 4.3 specifically addresses infidelity. You forfeit all jointly acquired assets if you engage in extramarital affairs. My lawyer has already filed preliminary paperwork. His face contorted with rage and panic. "You vindictive bitch! You planned this." "No, Michael, you planned this, for 3 years. The doorbell rang again. "I suggest you pack essentials tonight. You have until Friday to remove your personal belongings. After that, anything remaining becomes my property." As Ryan supervised the locksmith changing our home security system, Michael frantically packed a suitcase, alternating between pleading for another chance and accusing me of destroying our marriage. "You'll regret this," he hissed, stuffing designer shirts into his luggage. "Vanessa and I have plans you can't even imagine." "I'm sure the FBI will find them fascinating," I replied. He froze. "What are you talking about?" "Nothing yet. But your sudden panic is interesting." His phone buzzed continuously. Vanessa, no doubt wondering why he wasn't responding. With each notification, his agitation grew. When the front door closed behind him, Ryan pulled me into a protective hug. For the first time since discovering the truth, I allowed myself to break down completely. My body shook with sobs as 12 years of marriage ended on our doorstep. "It's going to be okay," Ryan whispered, though we both knew it wouldn't be, not for a long time. What I couldn't have known then was that Michael's betrayal extended far beyond our marriage. The text from Vanessa wasn't just about a pregnancy scare. It was a warning that their carefully constructed world was about to collapse for reasons neither of them could have anticipated. 3 days later, when Vanessa showed up at my office door in tears, I learned the affair was just the surface of Michael's betrayal. "He's been stealing from clients," Vanessa said, her voice barely audible across my office desk, "including my parents' retirement fund." The conference room door was closed, blinds drawn. My assistant had strict instructions not to disturb us. "Why are you telling me this?" I asked, maintaining professional composure despite the surreal nature of facing my husband's lover. "Because the FBI contacted me this morning." Tears streaked her makeup. "They're investigating Michael for financial fraud." When I confronted him, he said it was all my fault, that our relationship expenses forced him to temporarily borrow from client accounts. The revelation should have shocked me. Instead, it felt like the logical conclusion to Michael's web of deception. A man capable of maintaining two separate lives would hardly balk at financial crimes. "How much?" I asked. "Millions." Her hands trembled as she placed a USB drive on my desk. Everything I could download before he locked me out of our shared accounts. Account numbers, transfer records, offshore holdings. He told me they were legitimate investments. 1 week later, I sat in my attorney's office alongside an FBI financial crimes investigator. The evidence Vanessa provided confirmed what forensic accountants had already suspected. Michael had been running a sophisticated scheme, using new client investments to pay returns to existing clients while funneling millions into hidden accounts. Michael's arrest made national news. Financial advisor charged with embezzlement, wire fraud, and multiple securities violations. His professional license was revoked. His reputation was destroyed. Former clients lined up to file civil suits. I filed for divorce immediately, citing both infidelity and criminal activity. The court proceedings were mercifully brief, given the overwhelming evidence and his eventual guilty plea. Our dream home, the renovated historic property we'd spent years perfecting, had to be sold to help repay his victims. I moved to a downtown apartment half the size but entirely mine. My clothes hung alone in the closet, no longer sharing space with a liar's possessions. The most vindicating moment came during his sentencing hearing. Michael's face as both Vanessa and I testified against him, his two worlds colliding in the most public, humiliating way possible. The realization dawned in his eyes that he'd lost everything: freedom, career, reputation, and both women he'd tried to control through deception. Financial crimes often begin with a sense of entitlement, the judge noted before delivering a 10-year sentence. Mr. Rapp Harrington believed he deserved more than he had legitimately earned, both in his professional and personal life. Those words echoed in my mind for months afterward. The entitlement that had allowed Michael to build a second life while maintaining our marriage. The belief that he deserved more than one woman, more than one future, more than he had earned through honesty. The healing process wasn't linear. Some days I functioned normally, excelling at work, reconnecting with friends, rediscovering passions I'd set aside during my marriage. Other days, I couldn't leave my apartment, paralyzed by memories and self-doubt. Therapy became my lifeline. Not just for processing betrayal trauma, but for understanding how I'd missed so many warning signs. My therapist helped me recognize that my career focus hadn't caused Michael's infidelity. His character defects had. The red flags I'd ignored weren't just signs of an affair. They were warnings about his fundamental dishonesty. Ryan became my strongest support, checking in daily, helping me navigate legal complexities, reminding me that Michael's betrayal reflected his failures, not mine. His own experience with divorce provided practical guidance when emotion overwhelmed reason. 6 months after Michael's sentencing, I received a promotion to executive creative director, the position I'd hesitated to pursue during our marriage. The irony wasn't lost on me that my career flourished once freed from Michael's subtle undermining and my own compromises. Dating remained a distant consideration. Trust doesn't regenerate quickly after such profound deception. But I found unexpected joy in rediscovering my identity outside of Michael's wife, the ambitious marketing strategist, the loyal friend, the woman who survived catastrophic betrayal and emerged stronger. The most important lesson from Michael's betrayal wasn't about infidelity, but about perception. How easily we see what we expect to see, believe what we want to believe. I had trusted Michael completely, never questioning inconsistencies, because I couldn't imagine he would construct an elaborate double life. Trust isn't blind faith. It's earned through consistent transparency in both significant moments and everyday choices. Now, I verify before trusting. Not from paranoia, but from wisdom earned through pain. 1 year after discovering Michael's secret life, I stood on the balcony of my new apartment, watching the city lights flicker on at dusk. My phone buzzed with a text from Ryan, checking in as always. My refrigerator contained groceries for one. My calendar held work commitments, therapy appointments, and dinner plans with friends who'd stood by me throughout the ordeal. My life was smaller in some ways, yet infinitely more authentic. No facade of marital perfection to maintain. No partner whose deception required constant vigilance. Just me, rebuilding on a foundation of truth. I thought Michael's betrayal was the worst pain I'd ever experienced, until I discovered what he'd hidden in our vacation home. The lakeside property we'd purchased just before his arrest contained evidence of financial crimes spanning multiple states, multiple victims, and multiple identities. What began as a simple divorce from an unfaithful husband evolved into a complex federal investigation that would eventually uncover an international money laundering operation run through my husband's investment firm. But that's another story entirely.